We are pleased to welcome now Mr. Andrew Scurry, who is the Director for State Threats and Cyber in the UK Home Office's Homeland Security Group, who is joining us virtually from London here today. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here today to talk to you all, albeit virtually, to mark the first anniversary of the Ransomware Task Force. I apologise, I'm slightly off screen. Our own cybersecurity here in the Home Office is so strong that it won't let me log on to Zoom. So I'm having to use my daughter's iPad to connect to you. I do apologise for that. Yes, as a colleague said, I'm the director responsible for state threats and cyber in the UK system. And while the Russian invasion of Ukraine has made an interesting time on state threats, it's been no less fascinating year on cyber policy. We've seen the rise of Lockbit as a ransomware actor, and the unprecedented Conti leaks provided us a real inside view of a cybercrime actor. We saw geopolitics playing into cybercrime, with Russia taking the unprecedented law enforcement action against ransomware criminals in January, an event which surely will not be replicated anytime soon. And Conti then demonstrated their clear but brief support for the war before quickly rescinding that support and instead going back to making money. And they and cyber criminals like them have continued to make a lot of money from ransomware. We estimate that in 2020, ransomware attacks may have cost the UK economy a minimum of £615 million. And Google tells me that's just over $750 million. And that figure has surely only gone up since then. Indeed, some authorities have estimated that over the last year, global ransomware payments are up 144%, and payment in demand $2 million. But the number of incidents and indeed their economic cost is, of course, likely to be much higher. Law enforcement teams believe that most attacks go unreported, perhaps through embarrassment or a reluctance to admit that they have actually sent money to criminals. So we now judge that ransomware is likely to be the most economically damaging cybercrime threat facing the UK. And these attacks, of course, have real-world consequences. The Eurofins forensic attack caused a backlog of 15,000 court hearings, leading to offenders going undetected and unpunished and leaving victims at risk. And of course, you'll be well aware of the panic buying in the US following the Colonial Oil Pipeline attack, which caused oil prices to rise by 6%. At that time, the biggest rise since 2014. And as the Senator said, countless other smaller businesses have been put at risk of bankruptcy, all while lining the pockets of cyber criminals. Now, because of all of this, my team has been leading the UK's cross-government ransomware sprint. And we've been hard at work to understand and grow our government's response to ransomware. And I'd like to thank all of you who've been part of that work. Many of you have kindly given your time and expertise to my team, and that is hugely appreciated. When we last met the RTF, we were just launching that ransomware sprint, and almost a year later, I'm delighted to be able to give you an update of where we are now. As you all know, ransomware is a complicated and novel threat type with sophisticated cyber criminals operating from a safe haven from law enforcement and using bespoke technology to target often poorly protected entities. A wicked problem like ransomware can't be solved by the wave of a magic wand or the passage of a single new piece of legislation. Instead, we need a whole of government, or actually a whole of society response. And while we are all figuring out what works against ransomware, that response will need at times to be experimental. We want to try things and see what works. So we need to work across policy and legislation, the operational response of our law enforcement and intelligence agencies, behavioral change and the communications campaigns that drive it, societal change, education and awareness, resilience, and technological solutions. We need to do it all. We have, though, in the UK searched for that magic bullet, because wouldn't it be great if we could find one? So we did explore making ransomware payments unlawful, but our ministers have rightly, in my view, concluded that this was not the correct approach. However, we do want to know when and how payments are being made and support organisations at the very height of an attack. The question is, how do we drive up reporting? And when speaking to colleagues across the world, underreporting attacks comes up time and again as a common problem. So we have been watching the introduction of the legislation in the US on mandatory reporting of cyber incidents in the critical national infrastructure sector. And we've also been looking closely at the plans Australia had prior to their election period. Here in the UK, we're currently testing a notification before payment policy, where organizations would be required to notify government the intent to make a ransomware payment before making it. This would, at the very least, provide us with greater knowledge and oversight of the ransomware problem. And ideally, it could give us the opportunity to intervene before a ransom is paid by suggesting alternatives and working with the affected entity on resolution. But that would require primary legislation, so we are looking carefully at the pros and cons. We also know that to tackle this threat, we must ensure effective public-private sector collaboration. We're therefore working with the UK insurance industry to share data and encourage their clients to report incidents. But fundamentally, all of this work has shown us that enhanced resilience is the best defense, not only to ransomware attacks, but to all cyber threats. And that's why our new national cyber strategy places resilience at its heart. Cybercrime is unfortunately a growing threat, and to give you some idea of the scale of the problem in the UK, our crime survey for England and Wales estimated that there were 1.8 million computer misuse offences in the year ending December 2021. And that represents over a 100% increase compared to the last comparable year, the year ending December 2019. And that's all driven by a 174% rise in unauthorized access to personal information, i.e. hacking. So cybercrime alone is sufficient in the UK to completely reverse the wider trend we have seen of physical crime across society falling. So whereas our previous cyber strategy focused solely on security, our new national cyber strategy signals a shift to a more comprehensive approach to cyber, drawing together our capabilities inside and outside government. The strategy will be guided by 5 pillars: building resilience, as I mentioned, strengthening our cyber ecosystem, investing in technology, advancing global leadership, and disrupting our adversaries in cyberspace. The UK government continues to promote basic cybersecurity standards through a range of means, including via the National Cybersecurity Centre, who are members of this group, and through the take-up of our Cyber Essentials programme. Now, just to unpack that a bit, the National Cybersecurity Centre, or NSC, is the UK's technical cybersecurity. And as such, it provides the definitive advice to government and the private sector on cybersecurity. That advice is free and it's tailored for different audiences. And Cyber Essentials is a government-backed scheme that will help people to protect their organisation, whatever its size, against a whole range of the most common cyber attacks. It enables businesses of any sort to get a clear picture of their cybersecurity level, and in turn provides assurance about their cyber defences. On top of the basic level of Cyber Essentials Plus provides an element of external audit via hands-on technical verification. We know that our best defense against ransomware remains to implement the most basic of cyber hygiene practices, with the main and easiest to implement being two-factor or multi-factor authentication, patching and offline backups, as well as regular training for staff. I'm incredibly proud of the work we in the UK are doing. However, it's clear to us that we alone cannot combat cyber threats. We've found huge value over the past year in the work we are doing with our international partners, whether it be bilaterally through leveraging our in-country cyber attaches network, or through the Five Eyes G7 World Counter Ransomware Initiative, all of which have been mentioned earlier. And building on the UK's G7 presidency, when we hosted the first G7 Senior Officials Forum on ransomware, we, along with Germany, are continuing to prepare joint work in this space. We're providing the Secretariat for the Ransomware Working Group, which will meet for 3 working level deep dives on virtual currency, international issues, and public-private partnerships between now and November. At the CRI, we are co-chairing the Counter Illicit Finance Working Group with Singapore. Working with other countries, we're aiming to deliver best practice principles for the reporting of ransom payments and demands, and for the supervision of virtual asset service providers. By strengthening the ties between like-minded countries, we will be best able to combat the threat that ransomware and cybercrime actors pose, as well as tackling the countries who harbour them or turn a blind eye. That's why I was so pleased to be invited to speak here today. As your paper rightly states, globally, we've done an amazing amount of work in such an unprecedented amount of time. And while it's a great start, there's much more to be done, particularly encouraging behaviour change around reporting and increasing our knowledge base of both incidents and the wider threat. I look forward to working with the RTF as it continues. Congratulations on a brilliant year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scurry, for joining us from quite a distance.